I think before I begin to speak, I would request to give a big round of applause to our young actors and the kind of courage that they have shown in making this movie about a person who is a manual scavenger and falls in love with a vegetable vending young woman, and her family then sells her off to somebody, and then since he comes from this manual scavenging background, when he goes to the police station to file a complaint against her abduction, the police instead of registering his FIR is basically making fun of him because of his caste background. So that's and then he, I think, unsuccessfully is not able to successfully lodge the FIR against those people who have abducted this young woman, his love interest. That's the story that this movie, Paro Pinaki Ki Kahani, depicts. Vikas also spoke about how caste is deeply entrenched in the whole business of movie making in India, that Dalit issues aren't really addressed. Caste is not really addressed. One of our colleagues, Harish Wankede, has been quite consistently writing on this issue in newspapers and in various platforms, showing that the caste continues to be a very stark and grim reality of Indian society, and it also reflects from various institutions of this society. Manual scavenging is basically it's a very serious issue, and this issue has not been appropriately explored through cinema. There has been fictional writing, not on manual scavenging as such, but a lot of sociologists and anthropologists have studied this topic extensively because it relates to caste. Even in cities as well as rural India, manual scavenging is predominantly done by Dalits. I am using the word predominantly because recently there has been a presence of non-Dalits in this occupation, caste occupation, because a lot of this occupation has been privatized. If you go to these malls, you will see non-Dalits working as toilet cleaners. But there is a difference between toilet cleaning and manual scavenging. Manual scavenging is largely associated with people who work in our city slum, in our cities. They are involved in cleaning drains and human excreta-ridden areas in our cities. I'd like to quote two cases that just to point out as to how horrible this system is and how this system is perpetuated in our society by not only caste but also other institutions, including bureaucracy. The state institution, which is supposed to supervise this system of manual scavenging, so that people of Dalit caste who are found in this system are not ill-treated or are not treated in terms of their caste, and they don't have to face caste discrimination. There was this case in Gulbarga city. Hello, can you hear me? There was a case in the Gulbarga city in Karnataka where a Dalit who had been working as a manual scavenger in that city, and when the city, the municipal corporation, had come out with a proposal that that the municipality had opened this sector, manual scavenging sector, for contractors to come in. So one of the manual scavengers in that city had applied, who was apparently Dalit. He had applied for a contract in this municipal corporation, but when he did not get the contract, he protested. And just imagine in what form he had protested. He smeared his entire body with human excreta and went to the municipal corporation and appeared before those municipality officers to show that this was his way of protesting, because he had not got contract. So said, what could be the outcome of that protest? The municipality officers filed a police complaint against him and had him arrested. Now, obviously the case created such an uproar, outrage in the state. So people started, various organizations belonging to this community started protesting. So public pressure was mounting, and as a result, the municipality had to withdraw the case against that manual scavenging. This is one case. Another case, few years back in Delhi, there were this, I think 4 OBC workers, or workers coming from different caste background. They were certainly not Dalits, who had been forced to enter into a manhole in a 5-star hotel somewhere in Delhi. And since they were not properly trained to clean the drain in that hotel, 4 of them died of asphyxiation. They enter into that manhole, and when first person entered, he died of asphyxiation because there is a methane gas that was there in that drain. So that young man died, and since he couldn't respond for a very long time, his 4 colleagues got alarmed. They also subsequently entered one after another. So all 4 of them died in that manhole. Now, so the family of those young men was saying that since it was not their caste, they did not belong to that caste, but they had been forced to enter into the manhole, so therefore the people who are involved in forcing them to enter the manhole should be punished. Now the situation is very interesting. The family members of those young 4 men who had entered and died in the manhole were talking about the caste background. So what those family members were saying, that since they did not belong to the Dalit caste, they should not have allowed to enter. Meaning, what those people believed, that this work of manual scavenging is exclusively done by Dalits. Now there is this very, very interesting scenario. It was very unfortunate that those 4 young men had died, but this family were talking about, the family members were talking about their caste background. Meaning they believed that manual scavenging is exclusively done by Dalits. Now, okay, and there was also a case in JNU itself that some people had been forced to enter a drain, and that had created a lot of uproar in the university, among the students community, and students have vigorously protested. I think one of them also, if I'm right, had filed an FIR against the administration. So the point is that whether it is rural India, or whether it is urban India, or whether it is university, or whether it is college, and there have been a number of schools where it was pointed out, it was shown that Dalit students had been forced to clean toilets of the schools. So the point is that manual scavenging is closely associated with, or perhaps exclusively associated with, caste. And people in this country believe, whether it is general public, or university administration, or municipality administration, it is believed that manual scavenging is the domain that is exclusively, or the caste occupation that should be purely done by Dalits. So even if you think of addressing this issue, manual scavenging, you can't really overlook caste. So it is deeply entrenched in the caste system, in the caste hierarchy of this society. So if you really want to address this issue, you have to first deal with caste. And dealing with caste or annihilating the spectre of caste from the mindset of Indian society is a very difficult task. Dr. Ambedkar had spoken about annihilation of caste, which is deeply embedded into the Hindu religion. And he said that unless and until you address this spectre, meaning you address this practice which is deeply entrenched, embedded in the Hindu religion, you would not be able to annihilate caste. And he was quite 100% right. And then he went on writing number of books addressing this issue and how caste is a menace to the Hindu society. But then if you see these cases, every now and then you are reading in the newspapers that somebody died in a manhole, a Dalit worker died in a manhole. But why do I have to have repetition of these cases? Why is not the university administration or municipality administration or any administration for that matter, or anywhere these cases happen, why these people are not punished? I mean, wherever a Dalit dies in a manhole, and whoever is responsible, any institution, that institution should be treated under the Atrocities Act. And the people who are involved in causing these kind of deaths should be appropriately punished. But when you look at the data, then how many people who had been accused of caste discrimination against Dalits, the punishment rate is too low because the mindset of this society is casteist. Whether you like it or not, caste is deeply embedded in our psyche. It has become what I call our common sense. Our common sense, constitution should have become our common sense. But on the contrary, what is happening, that religion has become our common sense. Caste has become our common sense. Therefore, caste discrimination or any atrocity that is perpetrated in the name of caste on Dalits, or even women also for that matter, should be looked at from the prism of caste, constitutionally treated as a crime. But unfortunately, that has not been the case. Unless our constitution becomes our common sense, you would not treat as a horrible social reality. But then unfortunately, caste is never seen as a horrible social reality. On the contrary, caste continues to be defended. When people talk about Hinduism, when people talk about Sanatan, when you go back to this whole doctrine of Sanatan, you just imagine what role women and Dalits have in this whole Sanatan system. You would see that caste discrimination is rampant. I spoke about, quoting Ambedkar, that how caste is deeply embedded in Hinduism. Now, when you think of addressing caste, you can't really think of addressing caste merely because it's a caste problem. That caste has the background of religion. Now, interestingly, you might ask, what about the other religions that are practiced in India where Dalits from those religions also complain of caste discrimination? Anthropologists, sociologists have written extensively. Even among the Indian Christians, caste is practiced. There are traces of caste-like practices among those people who practice Islam. There is caste among those who practice Sikhism. So how to account for this presence of caste in these religions? So it is not only the problem with Hinduism, but also a problem with other religions. The only difference is that, doctrinally speaking, caste is mentioned in the textbooks of Hinduism. Caste is not mentioned in Quran, caste is not mentioned in Bible. That's the fundamental distinction between these religions. But people don't really accept that reality. So when you want to address this monster or the spectre of caste, you must look at our religious heritage quite critically. We may like it, we may not like it. But then how do you account for this kind of practices that continue to exist? Why do Dalits have to die? The moment, a lot of people, a lot of sociologists, I'm one of them, that this sector should be mechanized. But the moment this sector is mechanized, these jobs are going to go to other castes. And what is going to happen with Dalits? Dalits should also stop monopolizing this work. They apparently believed that it is their work, and they continues to reproduce this tendency that manual scavenging is our work. I mean, whether they monopolize it or society heaps on them, it is debatable. But I'm going to go with this kind of argument that you have to rehabilitate people who are into manual scavenging. And the moment it gets mechanized, these jobs are going to go to, other people are going to enter into this sector. But then the government must try to rehabilitate these members, those who are currently working in the manual scavenging occupation, which is caste occupation. There may have been entry of non-Dalits here and there, but largely this work is done by Dalits. And this is going to be continued. Mind you, I mean, I may sound a bit pessimistic, but then annihilating caste or erasing caste from the Indian psyche is a very difficult thing. Now we have laws that ban caste discrimination, but ultimately it depends on who is implementing those laws. Who is sitting in the bureaucracy, who is sitting in the police, who is sitting in the judiciary. The moment courts have these kind of cases, courts should very sternly deal with these kind of things. Cases involving deaths in manual scavenging or manholes. But then it seems that the practice is rampant, because we keep reading, we keep hearing every now and then that Dalits die in manholes. And government is making all tall claims, but we have to take these claims with a pinch of salt. But rampant privatization is going to add more problems to this system, because private contractors do not take the responsibility of protecting the well-being of these workers, because they seem to believe that since it's a caste occupation, so it's not a big deal. Even though it's a caste occupation, but now that occupation needs to be banished. And how you can banish it? By providing safety and security. It is the government's responsibility to provide safeguards to these workers. But we see that these institutions keep on flouting these rules and regulations. So it is the normative conditions that make this occupation exist. It is the mindset that makes this, that has perpetuated this practice of manual scavenging. So wherever cases of manual scavenging are found and people are treated in terms of their caste identity, I think the state should severely punish these people of practicing caste discrimination. So otherwise, I don't think there is any credible solution to this menace of manual scavenging. So we'll continue to have deaths, we'll continue to have Dalits being pushed into this caste occupation unless and until, and Dalits should also now stop treating this as their monopoly. They should start, Dr. Ambedkar had said that Dalit, since caste system is very strong in our villages, Dalits should leave villages for the cities. And Dalits responded quite affirmatively, and whatever little changes happened in their lives is largely because of their migration to cities, where they acquired education, where they entered into formal sector jobs, and that is how, to some extent, caste has been seriously defeated. But the rampant privatization of jobs in our municipality is now basically reproducing this monster. So I think it looks that we are going to have this old system back. So privatization of this occupation is seriously posing a threat to the well-being of these workers. Because as I said, private contractors do not take the responsibility of protecting the well-being of these workers. The state should continue to govern this. When I say state, meaning the state government. The state should continue to monitor these jobs, continue to monitor the extent of caste being practiced in this occupation. Unless and until that happens, we would not be able to deal with this menace of manual scavenging. And Dalits will continue to die, and caste will continue to be reproduced in this sector. So if you really want to decisively deal with this practice of caste discrimination in manual scavenging, then the state must take the responsibility. Civil society is another area which can interfere in this, but I don't seriously think that civil society would be able to address this problem decisively. It is solely and solely the responsibility of the state, and wherever these kind of cases occur, those people should be seriously seriously dealt with and seriously punished. Otherwise, this menace of manual scavenging will never come to an end. All we will have victims, and therefore I think we should seriously appreciate the efforts of these kinds of movie makers who are making this kind of movies, giving a very strong social message that Dalits should not be ill-treated, Dalits shouldn't be discriminated against, and they should also be treated as human beings deserving respect and dignity. Unless and until we have this vision, caste will never be annihilated from the psyche of the society. As I pointed out before, but then simultaneously you also have the menace of religion growing day by day. Certain religious practices are also going to be staunchly defended. But if this continues to happen, then caste is never going to be annihilated from the psyche of Indian mindset. So we have to also critically look at our religious heritage, the way we practice our religion. Every religion, I believe, teaches equality. So I think that should be the religious understanding that we should internalize. Otherwise, these kind of casteist divisive practices will continue to flourish, and along with that, large number of people will fall victim to this kind of mindset. So if we really think that caste should be annihilated from the psyche of Indian mindset, so we should seriously look at this problem, and we should treat as a menace, and government should also take at its moral responsibility to mechanize this sector. Unless and until you mechanize, you introduce technology to handle these kind of jobs, we will not be able to decisively defeat this specter of manual scavenging, and along with it, the specter of caste. I think with these few words, I should stop and hand over the mic to our next speaker. Thank you.